Imagine this scenario. It's a Tuesday morning, it's raining, just that gray, miserable drizzle. You're doing the usual chaotic morning routine, packing lunch boxes, finding lost shoes, signing permission slips at the very last second. But while you're pouring the cereal, there is a literal pit in your stomach, a physical weight. Because you know that when you drop your child off at school today, you aren't just dropping them off for education, you are leaving them in a place where they are not safe.
And we aren't talking about the vague anxiety of will they make friends, or will they fail math, or even will they scrape their knee on the playground. We're talking about safety in the most primal physical sense, the kind of fear that makes you check your phone every 5 minutes.
Exactly. You know for a fact that they are being targeted. You know there are threats. You know there is physical violence waiting for them at the gate. And when you go to the people in charge, the principal, the administration, the people whose salaries are paid to keep that building secure, and you say, my child is in danger, I need to be there to protect them, they look you in the eye and say, no, you're not allowed, go home.
It is the ultimate nightmare for any parent, that feeling of absolute powerlessness. You hand over your most precious responsibility to an institution, assuming there is a social contract there. You assume that if the institution fails, you can step back in. But what happens when the institution locks the door from the inside? What happens when the system tells you that your right to protect your child ends at the property line?
That is the terrified reality we are unpacking today. We are looking at a specific, frankly heartbreaking case study from a primary school in Hettstedt, Germany. But we are using that story as a launch pad to get into something that I think is going to blow our listeners' minds. We are talking about a legal lever, a literal override switch that parents have, which almost nobody knows about.
It's a concept called Bestandsflick.
Bestandsflick. Say that again.
Bestandsflick. It translates roughly as the parental duty of support. And the source material we are looking at today argues that this legal concept gives parents far more power to walk into that school building and even into the classroom than any principal would ever admit.
We are going to get deep into the legal weeds on that because if you are a parent, you need to hear this. But first, we have to set the stage properly. Our source material today is a bit different. It comes from a political commentary and an article featuring Hans Thomas Tilschneider of the AfD. He's discussing a severe bullying case and making some very specific political demands regarding school safety.
And just a note on our approach today, because this is a political source, we need to be clear on our mission. We are analyzing the arguments, the legal claims, and the narratives presented in this text. We are taking a look at the perspective offered to understand the mechanics of the argument, especially regarding this legal rights issue.
Right. We are here to decode the information, not to endorse a party platform. We want to extract the insights on parental rights and understand the critique of the school system. And for those who want to see the original source material, the article, and the video statement we are discussing, we have put the link right there in the video description. Go check it out. But frankly, the details of the case itself, they're heavy.
They are very heavy.
So let's get into it. The location is the Novales Grundschule in Hettstedt, Saxony-Anhalt. The victim is a 9-year-old boy, just 9 years old.
That age is important context to hold in your mind. We aren't talking about high school brawls here. We aren't talking about 17-year-olds pushing each other in the parking lot. We are talking about a 4th grader, maybe 3rd grader, a child who is still very much dependent on adult protection. A child who still holds hands crossing the street.
A child who should be worried about, I don't know, Pokemon cards or learning long division.
Exactly. Not about his physical safety.
And according to the source, this protection completely evaporated. The report describes a campaign of abuse that went on for months. Tilschneider describes the perpetrators as a migrant child gang. Migrant and Kinderbond? And the specifics, I read this and I just felt cold.
It's the escalation that is so disturbing. The source details physical beatings, which is bad enough. But then there's the humiliation. The report states the child was forced to undress, forced to pull down his pants in front of others.
That's not bullying. We need to be careful with our language here because bullying summons images of name-calling or stealing lunch money. This is assault. This is sexual humiliation.
It is psychological torture. It's a power play designed to completely break a person. And it didn't stop there. The source highlights psychological terror involving death threats. Specifically, the phrase used was, "We will stab you."
We will stab you. To a 9-year-old.
Imagine the psychological weight of that on a child's mind.
Wait.
You are 9. You take words literally. You don't have the cognitive filter to say, oh, they're just posturing. When a group of peers says they will kill you, you believe them.
It becomes your entire reality. Every shadow in the hallway, every time someone runs up behind you on the playground, you're living in a state of high alert.
Constantly. And the source says this culminated in October 2025. The child collapsed at home.
Collapsed physically.
Or emotionally. The text describes it as a complete nervous collapse. Just broke down. The body and the mind just couldn't take any more of the stress. And since that collapse, he hasn't been back. He is too terrified to enter the school building.
I can't even imagine. And this is where we move from the incident itself to the institutional response, which the source argues is where the second tragedy begins.
Yes, the first tragedy is the violence. The second is the system's reaction to it.
Right, because you'd expect the school to go into crisis mode, lockdown, investigation, protection. You'd think alarms would be ringing all the way up the chain of command. But according to Tilschneider, the school's solution for this traumatized kid is worksheets.
Distance learning, essentially. They send homework home. They said, stay home, we'll send you the math.
I'm sorry, but that feels like punishment. The victim is isolated at home, doing math sheets at the kitchen table, while the gang that threatened to stab him is presumably still sitting in class, still playing soccer at recess.
That is the core of the critique in the source material. Tilschneider argues that this approach completely fails the school's Bildungssoft trick.
Bildungssoft, define that for us.
It's the educational mandate. In German law, school isn't just about downloading data into a brain or filling out forms. It's about social participation. It's about learning to be a citizen among peers. It's a holistic concept.
So sending worksheets home only fulfills like 10% of that mandate.
If that. It fulfills the busy work part. But it fails the social, emotional, and civic parts of education. By keeping the victim home, the school is essentially validating the bully's power. They won. They cleared the territory. The victim is socially erased.
It's the path of least resistance for the school, isn't it? It's easier to send a scared kid home than to confront a violent gang.
And that's a theme we're going to see recurring. But here is where the story takes the turn that leads us to our main topic, the mother. She's watching her son fall apart. She knows the school isn't fixing it, so she comes up with a proposal.
And what's crucial here is how reasonable her proposal was.
And it was a very modest proposal, all things considered. It wasn't radical. She wasn't demanding heads on a plate.
She didn't ask to bring in a private security detail. She didn't ask to teach the class herself. What did she ask for?
She requested to simply accompany her son to school. She specifically said she didn't even need to be inside the classroom disrupting the lesson. She just wanted to sit in the hallway outside the door so her son would know she was there. A safety anchor. Mom is just outside.
That seems incredibly reasonable. I will sit quietly in the hall so my terrified child can get an education. That is the bare minimum request you can make in this situation. And the school said.
The school said no.
Why? On what grounds did they think she was dangerous? A threat to security?
No, the justification cited in the source is the classic bureaucratic defense. Da könnten ja alle kommen.
Translate that for the non-German speakers.
Roughly. If we let you do it, everyone could come. Or where would we be if everyone did that? It's the slippery slope argument.
If we let you do it, everyone could come. That phrase drives me insane. It's the lazy anthem of administration everywhere. Everyone isn't asking to sit in the hall, Janet. Everyone's kid didn't just get threatened with a stabbing.
It's a deflection. It ignores the specific context of emergency. It treats a crisis situation as if it's a standard precedent. It's a way of saying, I don't want to deal with your specific problem, so I'm going to pretend it's a generic problem that would overwhelm the system.
It's a total abdication of responsibility. But it gets worse, right? The school didn't just say no, they had a counter-proposal.
Oh, yes. After rejecting her minimal impact solution, they offered one of their own.
Oh, I dread to ask.
They suggested that the victim should change schools.
Unbelievable. So the solution to violence is to uproot the victim, disrupt their education, sever their social ties, and leave the perpetrators exactly where they are.
According to the source, yes. The victim, who has done nothing wrong, is the one who has to leave. The perpetrators, who created the problem, get to stay.
That is victim blaming institutionalized. And this is what Tilschneider highlights as a fundamental absurdity in the current system. The burden of solving the violence is placed on the person suffering from it.
It's perverse. But this is the pivot point. The mother is told no. She is told, you can't be here. Most parents, I think, would crumble there. They'd get angry, sure, maybe yell, but eventually they accept that the principal has the keys to the castle. We assume the school has the final say.
We're conditioned to. From the time we are 5 years old, the principal's office is the seat of ultimate power.
Correct. We are conditioned to view the school as the authority. We raise our hands to speak, and that conditioning never really leaves us, even when we become parents.
But the source says we're wrong.
We are completely wrong. This is where we need to unpack Bystand's fleet.
Okay, let's break this down. This is the core of our deep dive today. If you take one thing away from this, let it be this concept. Bystand's fleet, what is it, literally?
Literally, it means the duty of support or duty of care. It's a legal concept grounded in German law, specifically referencing Article 6 of the Basic Law, the Constitution, and paragraph 1680 of the Civil Code, the BGB.
Okay, so it has a constitutional basis. This isn't some obscure bylaw. This is foundational.
Exactly. And what does it actually say? Is it just flowery language about loving your kids?
Yeah, is it just a feel-good phrase?
No, it's functional. Article 6 establishes that the care and upbringing of children are the natural right of parents and a duty primarily incumbent on them. The state watches over it, but the parents are the primary agents.
Okay, so the parent is the default authority, not the state.
That's the principle. So, follow the logic here that the source lays out. School attendance is a mandatory part of a child's life, right?
Right, compulsory schooling. You go to jail if you don't send them.
So if school is mandatory and parents have a mandatory duty to support their child in their development, then supporting the child during school is part of that package. The argument is that this isn't a favor the school grants you. It is a right you already possess.
So, Till Schneider is arguing that when the mother asked, "Can I sit in the hall?" she was asking for permission she didn't actually need.
Precisely. The text asserts that parents have a mandatory right to stand by their child at any time. And this includes being within the school building and, crucially, even inside the classroom if necessary for the child's welfare.
Wait, even inside the classroom, sitting next to the desk?
Yes. If the child's well-being requires your presence for them to fulfill their mandatory schooling, your duty to be there, the source argues, supersedes the school's general house rules.
That's the aha moment.
It is. The source provides this key insight. Schools do not have the inherent right to simply stop parents from exercising this duty. The default setting is not parents keep out. The default setting legally is parents are responsible for this child.
And this isn't just a political talking point, right? You mentioned this is based on actual court rulings.
That's the claim made in the text, and it's a powerful one.
Yeah.
The source states that the interpretation that school attendance falls under Bystand's fleet is confirmed by court rulings.
So judges have already agreed with this.
Yes, that's the claim. Legal precedent exists. But, and this is the kicker, it is almost entirely unknown within the parent community. Parents don't know they have this card to play.
That is wild. It's like finding a secret tunnel in a video game that skips the hardest level. We've been banging our heads against the door and the key was in our pocket the whole time.
It's perfect analogy. But there is a practical barrier, a real-world obstacle.
Which is?
The physical reality. If you just walk into my kid's math class tomorrow and sit down, the principal is going to be called. They're going to tell you to leave. They might even call the police for trespassing. You can't just barge in and wave a copy of the Civil Code.
Yeah. How does this work in reality? What's the mechanism to enforce this, right?
This is the most fascinating part of the source's argument. It's about understanding the bureaucratic mechanism and flipping it on its head. The source calls the current dynamic mental submissiveness. We obey because a teacher sounds authoritative.
Right. I'm the principal
Yeah.
and we just fold.
But legally, if a principal wants to stop you from exercising your Bystand's fleet, for example, sitting in class because your child is terrified, they cannot just say no. They can't just verbally tell you to get out.
What do they have to do?
They have to issue a formal, written administrative act, a Verwaltungsakt.
A Verwaltungsakt. Okay, explain that to me like I'm 5. Why does that matter? Why is a written paper different from a verbal get out?
Because a no in a conversation is just air. It vanishes. It's your word against theirs. There's no official record. But a written administrative act is a legal document. It's a formal act of the state.
And that means it has to follow certain rules.
Exactly. It has to be justified. It has to cite laws. It has to explain in writing why your quiet presence in the hallway is a greater danger to the school order than the physical danger your child is already facing. And most importantly, because it is a formal act, it can be legally challenged.
Ah, I see. It creates a paper trail.
A paper trail that leads directly to court. You can file an objection. You can sue against it.
So by forcing them to write it down, you are moving the battlefield from the principal's office, where they are the king, to the court system, where they are just a defendant.
Precisely. And courts look at proportionality. If a mother says, "I am sitting here because my child was threatened with death, and I am ensuring his safety so he can fulfill his compulsory schooling," and the school says in writing, "We are banning her because it sets a bad precedent," a court might look very unkindly on that school.
That changes the whole power dynamic. The source basically suggests the mother could just go sit in the classroom and wait for them to bring the paperwork.
The tactical advice in the text is essentially, don't ask for permission, exercise your right. The burden is on the school to formally expel you from the premises via legal paperwork, not the other way around. You put the onus on them to justify their no legally.
That is bold. It's almost civil disobedience, but based on civil law.
It is. Now, the source does add a caveat. Till Schneider notes that suing to stay at a school that clearly doesn't want you might not be sensible in the long run. The atmosphere would be poisonous. Your kid might suffer more from the tension.
Right. You might win the legal battle, but lose the war for your child's peace of mind.
Exactly. But the point is, parents must not accept these conditions without a fight. You don't have to just take the no. You can force the system to justify itself on paper, and often the system will fold rather than do that.
I think so many parents need to hear that. We feel so small when we walk into those administrative offices.
Yeah.
Actually, we hold the constitutional cards.
We do. But this leads us to the darker side of the analysis. If the parents have this power and the schools have duties, why did the school in Hetstedt push so hard to get the victim to leave? Why not just kick out the bullies?
Yeah, that seems like the logical step. Zero tolerance, right. You threaten to stab a kid, you're gone. Why didn't that happen? Is it just laziness?
The source offers a systemic critique here that is quite cynical, but probably rings true for anyone who has dealt with bureaucracy. It's the path of least resistance. But it's also about liability.
Unpack that. Liability for what?
Expelling a bully is difficult, just like banning a parent. Expelling a student requires a Verwaltungsact. It requires a formal administrative act with solid justification. You can't just say, "Billy's a bad kid, he's out."
And I'm guessing the bully's parents can sue.
Absolutely. The perpetrator's parents have the right to appeal and sue against the expulsion. They'll say, "My child is being unfairly targeted," or "The school is discriminating." And here is the trap for the school. If that goes to court, everything comes out.
What do you mean everything? The facts of the case?
Yes, but more importantly, the school's role in it. If the school tries to justify expelling a student for months of severe bullying, they have to document that bullying. They have to prove it happened. In doing so, they are inadvertently proving that they failed their own Aufsichtspflicht. Supervisory duty. It's the school's legal obligation to supervise students and keep them safe. If they prove the bullying was severe enough to expel the kid, they are simultaneously proving they let severe bullying happen on their watch for months.
Oh, wow. It's a catch-22. To prove the kid is bad enough to kick out, they have to prove that they, the administration, were incompetent.
Exactly. It exposes their own negligence. It opens them up to lawsuits from the victim's family. The source argues that administrators are terrified of this scrutiny. They don't want a court record showing they lost control of the school.
So the strategy is, just hope it goes away, bury it.
The source calls it, sit it out. Aussitzen. Wait, in Germany, students usually change schools after 4th grade to go to secondary school. So if you could just stall until then.
Out of sight, out of mind. The problem literally moves to a different building.
The problem solves itself. From the administration's point of view, the victim leaves or the bully graduates. The administration survives without a scandal on their permanent record.
That is infuriating. It's preserving the institution at the cost of the child. I feel like the system is protecting itself, not the students.
That is the argument presented. And this failure of the soft approach, the bureaucratic self-preservation, is what leads into the political analysis provided by the source. Because Till Schneider isn't just analyzing the legal failure, he's offering a very specific ideological diagnosis of why this is happening.
Right, and we need to get into this because this is where the AfD perspective comes in strong. The source doesn't just blame lazy principals, it blames the entire philosophy of how we handle conflict in schools.
Yes, there is a scathing critique of the current support systems. The source mentions a useless student representative who, after this incident became public, called for more psychologists.
Which sounds like a standard response, right? We need more support staff, we need to understand the root cause, but the source hates this idea.
The source argues it's redundant and ineffective. Till Schneider points out that Novales Grundschule already has what's called a multi-professional team. They have social workers, they have the structures, and yet the abuse happened.
So the argument is, you had the experts, you had the social workers, and the kids still got threatened with a stabbing. So clearly, social workers aren't the fix.
There's a quote that really highlights this stance. Chair circles and school social workers do not help here. He is rejecting the therapeutic, talk-based approach to what he defines as raw violence.
Chair circles, that's a very specific image. Sitting around talking about feelings, restorative justice circles, that kind of thing.
And it's dismissed as utterly naive and useless against what the source describes as migrant violent offenders. And this brings us to the most controversial part of the text, the societal diagnosis.
Yeah, we have to talk about the language used here. The source is very explicit about the perpetrators being a migrant Kinderband, a migrant child gang. This framing is central to the argument.
It is. And Tilschneider claims that the core problem is a societal atmosphere where these offenders feel, to use his words, like a fish in water.
Like a fish in water. That's a vivid idiom. It means they feel comfortable. They feel like the environment is built for them to operate in without consequence.
Exactly. He argues the ecosystem of the school is tailored to let them thrive while the victim suffers. And this leads to a direct critique of anti-racism initiatives. You've probably heard of the program, School Without Racism, School with Courage.
Yes, it's everywhere. Big signs on the school walls. It's a standard badge of honor for schools to participate in that.
Tilschneider argues that these initiatives are actually misdiagnosing the problem. He claims that by labeling the main problem in schools as racism, politicians are giving violent offenders a shield.
How so? How does an anti-racism sign help a bully?
The argument is that if the dominant narrative is Germany is a racist society, then a migrant child who is violent can view themselves as a victim of that system. They can rationalize their behavior as resistance or defense. And critically, they know the system is terrified of being accused of racism.
So any attempt to discipline them could be framed as a racist act.
And the system will therefore treat them with kid gloves, with leniency, to avoid that accusation. That is the core of his argument. He says labeling the problem as racism allows offenders to play the victim card and paralyzes the school's ability to enforce discipline.
And there was some very specific rhetoric about identity in the text. He used the term potato.
Yes. He calls for a mentality shift where foreigners do not dare to target, quote, any German, any potato, irgendeinen Kartoffel.
Potato is usually used as a slur against ethnic Germans, right? Or at least a mocking term.
It is often used disparagingly. Tilschneider seems to be reclaiming it here, or at least using it to highlight the target demographic he perceives. He's positioning the potato, the German child, as the prey in this ecosystem he's described.
It's very us versus them language. It frames the school not as a community, but as a hunting ground with clear predators and prey based on ethnic lines.
It does. It's a stark and provocative framing. And it sets up his proposed solutions. Because if you believe that social work fails, and you believe that the system is too soft because of political correctness, then logically your solution is going to be
Hardness.
heart. That is the word used. He's making a direct call for it.
So what does hardness look like in this proposal? We aren't just talking about stern looks and a note to the parents.
No, not at all. Tilschneider rejects indulgence, Nachsicht, and demands two types of hardness, pedagogical and legal. These are concrete, non-negotiable proposals.
Let's start with the physical. The most immediate proposal. The source mentions security guards.
In a primary school,
Yes.
Wachschutz. The proposal calls for professional security presence at schools. Not teachers, not social workers, but guards. Their job is not to educate, but to physically protect victims and intervene in violence.
That is a massive shift, turning schools into secured zones, almost like airports or courthouses.
The argument is that if teachers can't or won't physically stop a beating, someone else must. The teacher is there to teach math. The guard is there to stop the stabbing. A clear division of labor.
And what about the students, the ones doing the bullying? What's the hard approach for them?
Immediate consequences. The proposal is, if a student is violent, immediate suspension for at least 1 week. No discussion. No therapy session first. Just immediate removal from the environment.
And if they don't learn, if they come back and do it again, what's the next step?
This is where the proposal splits by age. The age of criminal responsibility in Germany is 14.
Right. Under 14, you can't go to jail. You can't be prosecuted in the traditional sense.
So for the under 14s, the source proposes pedagogical special institutions.
Special institutions, that sounds ominous. What are we talking about here? Boot camp?
The description is basically a reform school. The purpose stated is to teach manners and discipline, entirely separate from the general school population, to remove the rotten apple from the barrel, so to speak, and put it somewhere it can be dealt with without harming the others.
So Total segregation of violent offenders under 14, and for those over 14.
Juvenile prison. The source is very blunt. Violent offenders over 14 should go to jail, not therapy.
It's a complete rejection of the rehabilitative model within the standard school system. The philosophy is exclusion. Protect the majority by removing the aggressor. Full stop.
Exactly. The summary of this political stance is that integration has failed in these cases, social work has failed, so the only remaining tool is exclusion and punishment.
It's a stark contrast to the circle of chairs.
It is the polar opposite. It's moving from a therapeutic model to a punitive, security-focused model.
So let's zoom out. We've covered a lot of ground here. We started with a heartbreaking story of a 9-year-old in Hettstedt scared to leave his house. We've learned that his mother was told no by a school that just wanted the problem to go away. We've discovered this hidden legal weapon, ByStands, Pflicht, which implies parents actually have the power to walk right past that no. And finally, we've looked at the AFD's response, which is to essentially militarize the response security guards, reform schools, jail.
It's a lot to process. But if we strip away the political rhetoric for a second and just look at the mechanics of the school system, I think the thing that sticks with me is the isolation of the parents.
Yeah, that feeling of being alone against the machine.
You feel so small when the institution turns against you, when they use their jargon and their processes and their, that couldn't y'all call them, excuses to shut you out.
And that's why that legal point is so crucial. Whether you agree with Till Schneider's politics or not, whether you want security guards or more social workers, the fact remains that legally, parents are not just guests in the school system, they are the primary stakeholders.
And they have a duty. The source emphasizes that. It's not just a right, a duty. If your child is suffering, you are legally obligated to step in, and the school is legally obligated to let you, unless they are willing to go to court to stop you.
That shifts the balance of power. It really does. It transforms the parent from a petitioner asking for a favor into a rights holder demanding compliance.
It creates a new question for you, the listener. Do you know your own strength? When you sit in that little chair in the principal's office, do you realize that the Constitution is sitting in the chair with you?
That's a powerful thought. And looking at the current state of the school system, the rising reports of violence, the bureaucratic inertia, and the legal realities we discussed today, I have to say it seems very likely that we will see more parents sitting in classrooms in the near future, as long as the system continues to operate this way.
I think you're right. If the schools won't provide the safety, the parents will bring it with them. It seems like an inevitable consequence.
Absolutely. Thank you for diving deep with us today. This was a tough one, but an important one.
Essential.
Check the link in the description if you want to read the full text. Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, know your rights. We'll see you on the next deep dive.